In Silent Hill 1, play as Harry Mason, a father in search of his missing daughter in the cursed town of Silent Hill. Unravel the mystery surrounding a psychic teenage girl and a cult attempting to resurrect an ancient demon that could spell the end of all things. In Silent Hill 2, play as James Sunderland, a man stricken by a heavy guilt as he is drawn to the cursed town of Silent Hill. Goaded by a letter he received from his deceased wife, face your fear, face your guilt as you unravel the horrible truth of what's really going on with James and the town. In Silent Hill 4, play as Henry Townsend, a man who found himself inexplicably locked inside his apartment as he fights his way through the sick, twisted worlds created by the insane mind of Walter Sullivan. Watch as Henry struggles to escape the fate forced onto him and fight the apocalypse that's in store for the whole world should Walter get his way. In Silent Hill F, play as an entitled little teenage girl who hates her parents because she's going through puberty and she doesn't want to get married. She wants to be a free spirit and practice self-love because she's so stunning and brave.
I can't get a job to save my life. I got a soil biology PhD and a tutor and a babysitter and a dog sitter. And
truly a worthy struggle of a real Silent Hill protagonist. Well, it arrived. Yet another installment in the newest genre that the true fans of the series coined. Shino. Silent Hill in name only. Because while this game calls itself Silent Hill, it's anything but. Back when the trailers released and I was informed the game takes place in Japan in the 60s, I already had a bad feeling. But I was still hopeful that, just like in Silent Hill 3, where half the game takes place outside the town, but the latter half is in it, and 4, where we visit Silent Hill and some of the other worlds, and the characters are heavily related to the town, that this game would have some significant link to the town, or if not the town, then the cult. But no, there's nothing. Maybe if we're being generous, there might be a very flimsy and frivolous cameo of the plant White Claudia from Silent Hill 1, but it's such an insignificant part of the whole. We know that the game takes place in the same universe as the original games. No one contested that, so that cameo amounts to farting in a hurricane, and according to Konami, the game has already sold over 1 million copies. So this is the future of the franchise from now on. Dogshit remakes that get everything wrong about what made the original 4 games great, and games that have nothing to do with Silent Hill at all because of the Silent Hill phenomenon, which is some dumb bullshit that they've come up with to explain how the effects of the town are not specific to the town anymore and its surroundings. The translation for this is basically, we ran out of talent and we need to capitalize on the trends that all the masses like nowadays, which is just Souls-likes. Everything has to be a fucking Souls-like now, with safe, generic, over-the-shoulder cameras, with no art direction whatsoever, and the cracks were starting to show in the trailers too. When the first trailer dropped and I saw the cinematics settling into an over-the-shoulder camera right before the trailer cut off, I knew something was up. The freeze frames when hitting enemies was also a terrible tell. And I was right, unfortunately. But I could never predict how much worse it would turn out to be. This game is a fucking Souls-like, and the worst one that I've ever played in my life. This is the farthest thing from a horror game. I thought Bloober's Chronos The New Dawn was the least scary fake horror game that I've ever played. I was wrong. I thought the Silent Hill 2 remake had the worst combat in the series. I was wrong. I thought the western entries like Homecoming and Origins and Downpour were bad. I was wrong. This game is so bad that it improved my opinion of the Silent Hill 2 remake that came before it, and is the logical conclusion of that game's existence. Konami simply tripled down, but if you're a normie listening to this and read all the mainstream gaming outlets, you might be in utter confusion right now. What? How is this game bad? All the reviewers gave it 10s, 9s, and 8s. Well, when IGN gives this game a lower rating than the average of the other outlets, you know they were left out of Konami's payroll. They don't even hide it anymore. Some of these reviewers are sponsored by Konami and they flout how much of a sellout they are in their videos, so I can't even imagine the sheer amount of money that was dumped into these gaming outlets. Now, does this game even deserve its title? Let's see. Remember when the series took itself seriously and presented the player with a concise, short content warning that didn't preemptively apologize for hurting the feelings of the player. Oh, please take a break and talk to someone you trust, you delicate little snowflake you. If you ever needed one sign that this game is going to be the tamest, safest, and the most condescending socio-political sermon, well, there you have it. I could waste my time trying to argue what makes a Silent Hill game Silent Hill, but I could just show you instead back-to-back footage of actual Silent Hill games and this silly, wacky anime that calls itself Silent Hill for some reason. Really fits like a glove, right? But what do you mean this is such an improvement? Like, for instance, the combat was always so bad, they claim now. Sure, that's the historical revisionist cope brainless shills are already using. No atmosphere, no darkness, no radio, no other world. The fog that used to be so thick you couldn't see 10 feet in front of you, which made that oppressive atmosphere of terror, is now so thin it might as well not even be there. It obscures nothing. There's no flashlight, there's no cult, there's not even a mention of Silent Hill. There's no more health drinks and ampules, a staple of the series. It has no subtlety, because if the game shoving down your throat its socio-political, ideological imperatives isn't enough, then Hinako literally spells out for you what all the symbolism from all the things she sees means in her little diary. There's no flavor text that always enriched the environments. Is that enough for you? Do I have to keep going? This isn't Silent Hill. This is just an over-the-top hack and slash mixed with souls. Hinako even has a fucking devil trigger, man. Oh no, but if you don't like that your favorite psychological horror slow burn series is turning into a shittier Devil May Cry mixed with a god-awful attempt at Souls-like gameplay, well, you're just a purist. You're stuck in the past. You hate change. Dude, it has one or two quirky little references to the originals. Screeches the rabid consumer. So yeah, it's Silent Hill in name only. But does it stand on its own? Is it a good game if it didn't have the Silent Hill name attached to it? Hell no. And it's time to go over why. Starting from the gameplay once again. I'll divide this section in two. First, I'll talk about everything but the combat, and then I'll talk about it in part 2. So what do you do in this game when you're not suffering through the dogshit Souls-lop combat? Well, it's basically Silent Hill 2 remake, but worse. The over-the-shoulder camera is back because every game dev decided to collectively forget that there exist other types of camera and better suited ones for making players scared in a horror game. This and Chronos, two big alleged horror games that came out like 2 weeks apart from each other, and both of them have nothing to do with horror. Is this the death of the horror genre in the AAA industry? Seems like it. At first I thought I was going crazy, maybe I had desensitized myself too much, but when playing as the fucking Doomslayer sometimes manages to be actually scary, unlike a game where you play as a high school girl, then I ain't the problem, it's the industry. And because of this camera, just like in Silent Hill 2 Remake and Chronos, the exploration boils down to fumbling around, mashing the A button to find items, almost as if you're a Doom guy, humping walls to find secrets in classic Doom. The environments are so uninteresting to look at that actually paying attention to see the items is a tiresome slog, so why wouldn't I do it that way? In classic survival horror games that employed the fixed cameras, the cameras would frame shots so that noticing points of interest was very intuitive and organic, without relying on UI overlays that break immersion, such as the ones this game employs. But even with these visual cues, there were points where I just couldn't find where I was supposed to interact, like at one point in that house that loops around, there's this one spot on the wall that is very inconspicuous to the point that it's complete bullshit, and without those icons, finding that thing would have been a nightmare. Now, this game is extremely linear. Even when you're exploring the town outside, it manages to be linear. Remember in the old games that had entire segments where you were allowed to roam free through a quasi-open world, searching for clues and key items to get to the next dungeon building? Yeah, forget about that in this game. You have a main path that is made obvious by the constant feedback the game gives you, with some offshoots to have some items and lore memos, but quickly lead to dead ends. The only place that resembled the classics in its freedom of exploration was the school, but it was an extremely short part and a one-off thing, whereas the original games had that as a fundamental of its level design and progression. Because the game is so linear, the map mostly serves just to tell you whether you're going forward or if you got turned around. That's it. And speaking of level design, this game has no otherworld. A Silent Hill game without an otherworld is completely retarded. Even if you want to be very generous and consider the Dream Shinto Shrine segments as an otherworld, it not only doesn't look the part, but it also doesn't play like it. The otherworld has always been about taking a place that you've already been through, that you've already solved, and then turning it on its head, resetting the map, locking doors that were previously unlocked and vice versa, changing up the layout to throw the player off, and has mindfucks like non-Euclidean spaces like the girls' bathroom from Midwich Elementary School that warps you between floors. This game though, each dream segment takes place in a completely different space each time. It's all these stereotypical Japanese shrines over and over again. They don't look intimidating, they're also pretty damn linear. You can't get lost in these places even if you tried. Now, why is this a problem? Well, because it makes the damn thing feel like a fever dream. Now, spoilers ahead, but sure, this makes sense in the plot because this game is basically just a drug-induced hallucination, but it fucking sucks from a world-building standpoint, and historically, none of the Silent Hill games were like this. They all felt grounded, the setting was stable, you knew you were in a town where weird shit was happening, all the characters reacted lucidly to the situation, and so that made the setting believable, because you were not constantly warping around different tunnels, cosplaying as locations. After all, in real Silent Hill games, the town itself is just as important as its characters and their personal stories. All these games inspired by Silent Hill, like Grey, like Cry of Fear, like Lost in Vivo, all of them have this same flaw where they put too much emphasis on just the character and their psychological journey through their own personal purgatory. Even Silent Hill 4, which is the more fever dreamish of the originals, does this correctly because it tethers the story to the setting of the Ashfield Heights apartment building and Henry's apartment. I was screaming at this game. Please let me run around a sandbox like the originals did for a little bit. But the game kept warping me into these stupid dream segments, not letting me enjoy the atmosphere of the town itself, which is the only place that has any semblance of a decent atmosphere. It's frustrating, but it gets worse. When you're in the real world, there are so many cutscenes all the time. It's basically this: run forward in the linear main path for a bit, get a cutscene, then run some more and cutscene, rinse and repeat. This is another staple of dogshit modern game design, where they intertwine brief segments of fake gameplay with cutscenes where you walk 5 feet and get a cutscene, walk 5 feet, cutscene. I'd much rather have a long cutscene that gets everything over with and then the game lets me roam free for a long time than this constant loop of short cutscenes and short gameplay. Moving on. In the little shrines where you can save your game, you can upgrade your stats, health, stamina, sanity, blah blah blah. Typical of action games. The healing items unfortunately are not health drinks anymore. It's red capsules, bandages, and food items. It's sad to see this series losing its identity completely like this. But anyway, you can also upgrade the number of Omamori slots you have. Omamoris are like badges from Paper Mario. They give you certain buffs, and you get them through a fucking gacha system. You can only get random Omamoris by paying money, aka faith. And each time you do, they get progressively more expensive. You only start with 1 Omamori slot, but you can get 2 more, which was pretty underwhelming. Just 3 slots? They could have made 4 or 5. It's pretty damn expensive to upgrade those slots, so it would be a challenge already. I don't know why they limited it to 3. It's pretty underwhelming. The inventory management is pretty bare bones. There are no chests to store your items, so if you get a full inventory and find a new item, you're forced to permanently discard an item or move on. This isn't a problem until the second half of the game or so, where the item variety gets pretty big. Not in their function, otherwise I would be praising the game right now, but just distinct items that occupy different slots, but all pretty much do the same thing with a little bit of variation. The items are basically healing items, items that recover your stamina, items that recover your sanity, and valuables for you to sell. The best item in the game is obviously the one that gives you infinite stamina for a while, so you don't have to deal with the fucking aggravating stamina bar getting depleted all the time and rendering you completely useless and defenseless. It's the one thing in the game that makes the torturous soul-slop combat more bearable. The sanity meter, though, is just another combat feature. It's nothing like the sanity mechanics from Amnesia or Eternal Darkness, so I'll talk more about it later in the combat section. The valuables, which are just offerings that you can enshrine at the save point shrines, just like in Chronos, are cumbersome when they take up space in the inventory, and they're always the same as well. There's no variety. Again, same criticism here. Just put the goddamn money on the floor. This isn't even a survival horror game. It's pure action soul-slop. Just cut the crap and make things more fun. Now, there's one thing that I really felt the lack of in this game, and that is throwable items. Sure, you can't have guns because of the time period, the setting, alright, but nothing would stop Neobards from including throwable items like throwing knives or bombs, fire bombs. What else? I don't know. Rocks. God, here's an idea. Let me throw my weapons. That would have been helpful in so many situations I can't even count them. The game forces you to set items to your quick menus. You have 2 of those, each with 4 slots. Sounds simple enough. Well, unfortunately, even this they fucked up. There are 2 problems. 1, you can only use your items through the quick menus. You can't open your inventory in the pause menu and use them there. I don't know why. All Silent Hill games allow you to do that. It's just another cumbersome extra step. The second problem is that, like I said, you only have 8 quick menu slots, but you're definitely gonna be holding more items than that, especially later on. So you'll be constantly finding yourself having to pause the game to replace items that are depleted. They couldn't even add a a feature that automatically replaces the item in the quick slot that's depleted with one that is similar. Or just add a third quick menu. Make that 12 slots, it would have been perfect. Silent Hill is not like Resident Evil. You always had infinite inventory space, with the exception of Silent Hill 4, of course. And that game was shit on, rightfully so for it. Do I expect the tourists to make the same criticism? Of course not. I wasn't born yesterday. I know your ilk. I also don't appreciate how the game constantly tells you what to do. Now, this might be a clever little meta thing they're doing, trying to make the player know how annoying it is being told what to do constantly, just like Hinako supposedly is by her parents and the patriarchal society and blah blah blah. But I didn't feel annoyed though. I didn't feel the oppression, dude. Sorry. It's just an immersion breaking thing, much like every game that does it. The same thing could be said for all the pop-ups, all the tutorials that pop up on your screen. I know you can turn those off, but there are some things you can't, and they keep popping up. A horror game that isn't immersive, well, shouldn't even exist, to be honest. As for the puzzles, they were a mixed bag for me. On the one hand, in the hard difficulty, some of them were pretty clever, but some of them were pretty lazy, and some were pretty nonsensical. I liked the one late in the game where you put the 3 medallions in the painting of the foxes. That one was well explained and well communicated visually. I had no issues with that, although getting to it was a bit of a pain. Being stuck in a forced combat room every time you picked the wrong door, that was pretty annoying. I liked all the lead codes for the school lockers. As silly as the concept was, at least those felt rewarding to solve. But the scale puzzle was ripped off straight from the Silent Hill 2 remakes padded out prison. It's the exact same thing, and the puzzle you gotta do the first time you visit the shrine world is pretty damn bad. Well, so fun, dude. Just keep flipping the plaques until she finds one that for some reason has a symbol that is important to her. The only challenge is the stupid enemy that keeps respawning to pester you, but that's artificial difficulty. But the worst puzzles are pretty nonsensical, like Rinko's puzzle box in the school. The first round mentions cake, and there's an image of something that looks like a slice of cake. So I thought, well, the solution then is to find the right combination of fruits that go on the cake as written in the description. But no, the solution is all fruits. Like, what kind of terrible cake did this bitch eat that has like half a dozen fruits on it? Then the last round requires you to know precisely what a sakura tree looks like. Motherfucker, I'm not Japanese. The only depictions of sakura trees I've ever looked at are from the dumb anime I watch. Like, this is as bad as SH3's Shakespeare puzzle on hard difficulty that requires prior knowledge of the 5 Shakespeare books featured in that puzzle. Also, that Shrine World segment where you murder your 3 best friends, each with their own subsections, have all the same type of puzzle spread across them. Flip the lever to open the doors with the symbol on it and close all the others. For one section, sure, but for 3 in a row?
So repetitive.
But hey, credit where it's due. At least this game didn't have the mind-bogglingly repetitive gimmicks that Goober Team's Silent Hill 2 remake had, like pushing a cabinet 10 times or breaking down the same exact wall over 20 goddamn times, or squeezing through the same fissure 5,000 times, or pushing the same cart for you to climb on 10 million times. Sure, you do this a few times in this game, but it's not even 1/3 of the amount that Silent Hill 2 remake had. So it's not that big of a deal. Well, we discovered America here, dude. Reinventing the wheel. Oh, and one more thing. This game, no yellow paint. Not even once. No stupid white paint like they did in Chronos either. None of that stupid toilet paper from the remake everywhere either. So, congratulations. Not perfect. After all, this game still treats you like an idiot, with the constant UI telling you what to do all the time. But it's a step in the right direction. And to wrap up this part of the gameplay, the game, although not as padded out as the Silent Hill 2 shitmake, still has plenty of padding. Most of it is packed on the late game. It's just gauntlet after gauntlet of forced combat arenas that you can't skip in a Silent Hill game. Oh wait, I forgot. This is Silent Hill in name only. But I want to do an intermission now to quickly go over the graphics and the soundtrack. And then we'll come back to gameplay with the combat. The graphics are UE5. Do I need to say anything else? It looks as generic as it gets. The same plastic ass, not quite there yet proto-photorealistic shit. Imagine being a kid and looking forward to how amazing the graphics would look like, only to find out 20 years later that the trade-off would be to completely suck the soul out of every single game. This game has no aesthetic, none of that demonic aesthetic anywhere to be seen. The other world, quote-unquote, of this game is just some generic Japanese shrines. No rust, no decay, no blood, no evil aesthetic to the doors, windows, and everything. I mean, just look at this. Team Silent managed to make even doors look menacing. Instead, we get all this biomass, along with the red spider lilies contamination. Looks more like Chronos the New Dawn's fleshy goop and the iconic otherworld aesthetic of the classics. The fog, as I said before, is extremely thin. Doesn't make a difference to the atmosphere or the practical visibility in gameplay terms. This game, just like every other UE5 slop, has this disgusting smeary ghosting that's extremely apparent in the first cinematic. Look at the nasty trail the raindrops leave behind. Look how smeary and turbid the water looks as it ripples out. I hate temporal upscaled cheat codes, man. Just bring back baked lighting so at least the games don't look like they're melting all the time. And speaking of melting, the character's skin looks like wax. I don't care about pretty graphics, dude. Again, just like in the Silent Hill 2 remake, whenever you turn the camera around too fast, you can see, especially around Hinako's head, these ugly ass artifacts, reminiscent of crusty JPEG compression artifacts. The depth of field looks like hot garbage. It doesn't properly blur the edges of objects that it's defocusing, and it flickers like a motherfucker. Such a good, modern, cutting-edge engine UE5 is, huh? Yeah. The game runs like trash as always. After all, it's made with the SAR Engine 5, but at least this game didn't keep crashing my audio drivers constantly like Chronos the New Slop did. So kudos to that, I guess. But some other people were not so lucky. I've seen several playthroughs of this game where they got a problem where the game just spazzes out, has a seizure, the game's viewport shrinks, and the game flickers this disgusting, stretched out clown vomit all around the shrunken viewport.
Oh my.
Gaming.
So on top of looking boring, generic, unscary, and soulless, the game may also give a seizure to those who suffer from epilepsy. It pains me to say this, and I'm sure all the fanboys are gonna consider this a blasphemy. I think Akira Yamaoka is washed up at this point, or at least I hope he's not in full control and he got vetted hard by Konami or Neobards, because when I saw that he worked on this game's OST, my heart sank. He wasn't the only one at it though, so hopefully that silver lining explains why this game's OST is so unremarkable. This OST is so very unmemorable. Most of it is just typical Asian noises, like sutras and shit. No, seriously, sure, the setting is Japan, but so what? The OG game set in Maine didn't have stereotypical American tunes. Even the more unnerving tracks, and I mean unnerving in theory, because this game isn't one bit scary, have these Asian things embedded in them. Way to take me out of the game. The thing is, shit like this would work in some other type of game, but in Silent Hill, where immersion is one of the most important pillars, this feels completely out of place, man. There was only one place where I almost felt like I was back in Silent Hill, at least sonically. Naturally, this is the best area in the game, as I mentioned before. This is definitely where Yamaoka was allowed to shine, but sadly, those moments are the exceptions to the rule. There's none of those more catchy and melodic themes we started to hear from SH2 to SH3 either. None of those surreal, Portishead inspired, dreamy lounge chill out tunes. And absolutely none of the bone-chilling, panic attack-inducing, absolute nightmare fuel tracks. Man, there's no comparison. Not in a million years is Silent Hill feminism ever going to measure up to the originals. Those games were terrifying because of their sound design mostly. But this, now aside from one track, we have nothing. Nothing at all. I don't remember a single track aside from the one I used as an example here. The only reason I remember that one is because it's basically a copy-paste of the one from Silent Hill 4 that plays in the spiral staircase. So of course it's got the essence. I'm gonna be very honest with you now. All they had to do was put these types of tracks into 90% of the game and they would have got about half of the entire experience right. It's that simple. They have the blueprint. They have their homework done for them, yet they insist on making these transfigured piece of shit games. There's nothing, man. This game is bankrupt. If you still can't grasp the difference, then you're a lost cause. See all you like about how you like your graphics or your shitty cinematic storytelling. This game is not Silent Hill. It will never be Silent Hill. Don't fool yourself into thinking you're getting the real Silent Hill experience with this game. Time to go back to combat. Oh god. Getting this out of the way first, I played this game on hard, which was probably the worst decision I've ever made in my life. Even Silent Hill 4 on hard was immeasurably less of a torture session than this piece of shit game. But I had no way of knowing that for neobards, hard means actual unbridled CBT. Why does this game only have unrelenting torture difficulty and journalist difficulty with nothing in between? They did not playtest this piece of crap on hard, but regardless of the difficulty, the combat in this game is dog shit. The features are as follows. You have a light and a heavy attack. You have a dodge button where Hinako, this little high school girl, dashes at the speed of light like it's fucking Guns the Duel 10 feet away. Obviously, this has iframes. This is Soulslop after all. And if you time it perfectly, you get a slow-mo perfect dodge that recovers all of your stamina. You can also hold L2 to enter focus mode, which allows you to easily use counterattacks on enemies. And in this mode, you can also charge up your attacks similar to how Silent Hill 4 did it, which deals less damage than the counter, but more than the regular heavy attack. Using focus mode depletes your sanity bar, and if it reaches 0, you start taking damage over time. But honestly, I rarely found myself depleting that bar completely. Then of course there's the stamina bar. No stamina means you can't do anything. Hinako will just stop to catch her breath, and you will be completely defenseless. After you get your furry arm, you can use a devil trigger. Silent Hill, by the way. Now let's begin breaking down why this game's combat is dog shit. Oh, I know, let's start with the weapon durability feature. Remember when everybody shat on Silent Hill 4 for this? Well, at least that game was smart enough to give you permanent weapons. Weapon durability is a shit mechanic that should be employed with extreme restraint and wisdom, something that neobars didn't have. The weapons break very fast, and the best strategy that I found was to hold on to the heavy weapons using toolkits to repair them, since the light weapons are pretty much made of paper and break after like 5 hits. Since this game doesn't have a chest, you are forced to carry at most 3 weapons, and whenever you find new ones, you have no choice but to permanently discard one of yours or just ignore that new weapon altogether. The toolkits are pretty sparse, so breaking your best weapons is inevitable. If you run out of weapons though, the game will conveniently keep spawning weapons on the floor for you. Isn't that nice? You know what would have been nicer? Just getting rid of this stupid durability thing. I hate these stupid games that sit on the fence between being an action horror and a survival horror, so they end up implementing the worst of both worlds. The awful Soulslop combat is far worse than the combat from Silent Hill 2 Remake, which is unthinkable. The enemies are all very tanky, so every combat encounter is a drag. You have to memorize their attack patterns in pure Souls-like fashion. It's pure trial and error, rote memorization. How is this fun? You're not allowed to improvise, you're not allowed to improve to kill enemies faster because the pacing of the combat is entirely dictated by the enemy. You're forced to follow their script until they're nice enough to present you with an opportunity. You can power through their attacks by charging up the heavy attacks, but that's only with heavy weapons. And you will take damage anyway, so that's not often a good idea. The lock-on feature is unfortunately pretty fucking janky too. So very often, Hinako will simply miss the attacks and they will just not register. And in a Souls-like game like this, whiffing attacks is bad enough, but the game whiffing them for you? That is a fucking affront. And just like Dark Souls, oh my god, that interview where the producer said this game isn't just Dark Souls with peak damage control. This game buffers your inputs, so if you slip up and input another attack in the middle of your combo that you didn't want to, you're just forced to helplessly watch as Hinako flays her weapon again and pray that the enemy won't fucking destroy you. Isn't that great game design, man? You like bad game design? How about when sometimes the game decides to not hit the enemy, but hit the wall behind the enemy, staggering her in the process, leaving you open to be punished? The hit detection on this game is pretty janky, so we can count on that happening several times. The shitty over-the-shoulder camera gets in the way too. Sometimes it gets too close because the space is too cramped, and you get fucked because you can't see what the hell is even happening. This camera type is a fucking disgrace. When are people going to realize that? There are instances where you clearly hit the enemy before he hits you. His attack animation is clearly cancelled, but you take damage anyway, so you're punished even though you've already memorized the enemy patterns, and you know you're gonna hit him first. Wow, what a rewarding combat system this game has, really. Hinako will also get caught on shit because the collision in this shitty engine called UE5 is so very bad. So that's excellent for when you're trying to run away, but her foot got caught on some insignificant geometry, and that's enough to stop all movement. That's if she's not literally falling through the floor, dude. Well, thanks Konami. Thanks Neobards. What a well-made game. And I haven't even gotten to the enemies yet. So do you like your stupid Elden Ring enemies with their artificially delayed attacks, specifically designed to throw you off, making it impossible to enter any semblance of a flow state in this game, when enemies constantly artificially wind up their attacks for longer, only to release the attack at light speed out of nowhere? Yeah, so fair, dude, so deep, just get good. Blurts out the smartest Souls-like cultist in response to any criticism of this dogshit anti-fun, anti-flow gameplay. These humanoid enemies, like the guy with no face and the licky guy, are absolutely on crack. They will just relentlessly attack with no opportunity for you to counter, even if you do a perfect dodge. Since Hinako jumps like 10 feet away because she's on steroids, by the time you get your bearings back, the enemy is already comboing you again. The enemy AI is also so fucking janky. In a Souls-like, naturally, when I'm facing multiple enemies, I want to pick them off one by one. I don't have enough stamina to fight them all together. But whenever the enemies are in a pack, there are multiple instances where they will just not come after me as they should. So I have to shuffle around to find the pixel that will trigger the AI to behave correctly. Another terrible thing this game does is it hides enemies behind corners or on the ceiling to catch you by surprise. Now, this wouldn't be an issue if it didn't do this gotcha thing constantly. It sure isn't fun for me having to keep looking up at the ceiling all the time. There's no indication whatsoever that you're in an area with those cheap traps. At least in the Silent Hill 2 remake, you could hear the mannequin squeaking and the flashlight would flicker whenever you were in a room they were hiding in. But in F, there's no such feature. It's completely out of nowhere. They also immediately grab you in these situations, so you take a shit ton of damage that you can't mitigate. In every horror game out there, you can at least mash your inputs to mitigate the damage when an enemy grabs you, but in F, you're just fucked. But the worst thing about this is how this game puts these traps even in chase sequences where you can't even afford to be watchful for them, because at least on hard, every second counts when you're running. Then they just grab you out of fucking nowhere and you die because you're stuck and the shit catches up with you and insta-kills you. There's no skill involved in this, it's not rewarding, it's pure trial and error. Oh look, it's another sequence where you have to run away as fast as you can before you die, but you can't, because the game just stuns you out of fucking nowhere, and then the enemies that are behind you catch up and kill you. The enemy variety is pretty shit, to be honest. It has 5 enemy types, 7 if you count the 2 demoted bosses. And no, the slight variations of the first enemy don't count for this. The basic enemy type that you'll be seeing the most, the mannequin ladies, are mostly fine, aside from it not being scary at all, and its introduction being so in your face and trying too hard to be scary. Imagine making an actual unnerving introduction like how they used to in a horror game. Nah man, everything has to be over the top and Hollywoodified today. Screaming in your face? Oh yeah, loud equals scary, always. Going back to the enemy, the only real bad thing about it is that stupid attack where they lunge at you with their knives like there's some fucking homing torpedo. It's pretty ridiculous to look at, and if you mistime your dodge even slightly, they will just snap at you, even flipping 180 degrees if they feel like it. The tongue dude is absolute torture to fight. Like I said, he's on crack. He keeps jumping around, not giving you opportunities to attack, and he'll also attack relentlessly. Trying to use a heavy attack on this guy is suicide because he'll just dodge and then destroy you. The best bet is to wait for it to slip up so you can sneak in and attack or counter it, but again, you're just following the script. I sure love waiting for the enemies to be nice enough to allow me to attack them, dude. Peak Soulslop design. The guys with no face, same exact thing as the previous one. They also have this ridiculously long combo that's ripped off straight from Dark Souls. You know the one I'm talking about. Oh no, but this game has nothing to do with Dark Souls, man. It also has this grab attack in where he pounds Hinako over the head.
That's what you get! That's what you fucking get, bitch!
Because they just had to give grabs to every enemy they could. Also, good luck trying to run away from him, because he runs faster than you. I know he's blind, but these enemies are mostly placed where you have no choice but to fight them, so whoever says that you can easily avoid combat in this game if you don't like the Soulslop is lying. Maybe in journalist difficulty, but I'm not stooping that low. The monster who vomits around would have been fine, but he's too damn tanky for his own good. Wow, dude, you find issue with everything. No, this is an issue with this enemy because it often pulls off a Death Stranding where it pisses all over the floor and blood-sucking plants sprout from it. So there's nothing you can do but wait until they despawn. Wow, dude, sure love waiting. How fun! If it wasn't so tanky, this wouldn't happen so often. Or better yet, if this game had throwable items, remember that? Then you'd have an option to deal with these things. I guess the most chill enemy is the amalgamation of dolls that's only present in the Shrine world. It doesn't have any annoying grabs or zoning attacks that require you to wait around, so they're cool in my book. That's it for the regular enemies, just 5. In a Souls-like game where action is the most important part, where you kill like 500 enemies, just 5 enemy types. So good. Then come the 2 demoted bosses, the first of which is just the big fat guy you saw a bunch of times already, but he can now use other enemies as puppets, which would have been extremely annoying, if not for the fact that whenever I found this enemy, I conveniently had a full meter of devil triggers, so I just popped that out and dealt with it easily. But the second demoted boss is the worst enemy in the game by far, the enormous, pregnant amalgamation that symbolizes Hinako's aversion to the prospect of having children like a regular woman. This enemy takes like 20 hits to kill, including heavy hits by the way, and it literally shits out enemies, and no, not weak minions. He spawns the full-fledged enemies that we've already talked about. So on top of having to waste 10 minutes tickling this gigantic wall of flesh, you also have to deal with the monsters it spawns that each take like 8 hits to kill. Sure, you can trickle down their health before they hatch, but the problem is that the boss won't stop attacking you while you do it, and if it does, then the enemy will most likely spawn with most of its health. Some of his attacks are so poorly communicated to, like the spit attack and this area attack, whose range is much bigger than it looks. This monster alone is the reason why this video game is the worst thing I've played in like a decade. The combat in general is just terrible, and I'm sure all the tourists and the shills will say, oh, but Silent Hill always had bad combat. Sure, it was a bit clunky, but the point that flies over the head of all these retards is that it never got in the way. This game forces you into combat constantly. It's not an option to just avoid it like it was in the old games. The only instances where those games would force you into combat was in boss fights. But in F and in the Silent Hill 2 remake, with its almost 400 enemies you have to fight, the shitty combat gets in the way like never before. It gets in the way of the story, it gets in the way of the horror, of the atmosphere, of the enjoyment. There's no way to feel scared of this game when you're constantly fighting. Fighting isn't scary, dude. And the funniest thing of all is that they removed the endgame stats screen because you'd be able to see the ridiculous amount of enemies that you killed in a Silent Hill game. I think this was done on purpose because it would be ridiculous and people would call it out. The future of Silent Hill is hack and slash, Souls-likes. Oh, please. The bosses overall weren't as bad as the regular combat, but holy shit, after you get your furry fox arm and the ability to activate Devil Trigger, this game just turns into a complete hack and slash joke. Look at this. How the fuck is this Silent Hill in any way, shape, or form? You goddamn sellouts. These normie fucking reviewers that only glazed this piece of shit with a script that sounds like it was generated by AI, with flowery language and platitudes that mean nothing. It's just a word salad. These reviews have as much substance as your run-of-the-mill politician's proselytism. The only reason why I'm even making videos like this is because I'm tired of this shit. These soulless personas are so boring to listen to. Unfortunately, it seems that that's what most people want, to hear their stupid babble that sounds good because it has pretty words and vague language, full of praise only. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to tell you what I really think. Maybe some of you don't appreciate how passionate I am about these things. That's fine. I'm not here to put on a fake persona just to please your delicate ears. Just look at this. The boss fight against your parents. They turn into Ornstein and Smo. Dude, and there's retards saying that this is the most Silent Hill game in decades. I have to believe that these reviewers were bought out by Konami, because the alternative has terrifying implications for the human race. It would just be too sad. As for the final boss, whatever, man. I'm out of it at this point. At least it gives you 3 lives, and on the 3rd life you get 100 healing items, so it's pretty impossible to have a hard time. And thank God, because by that point I wouldn't be able to stomach half an hour more of this boring piece of shit, torturous torment simulator that is this game. I was unironically actually enjoying the game during that brief section in that house that loops around. The first loop has no enemies, but unfortunately that doesn't last for long. I know this chapter has been going on for too long already, but I have to rant about this. The last 2 or 3 hours or so of this game is the most drawn out slog. Basically, the game after you defeat Ornstein and Smo turns into the most horrible garbage that's out there in the industry. It's gauntlet after gauntlet of forced combat situations you cannot avoid. There are walls of flesh that only open up after you kill the mini-boss, who are the worst enemies in the game, as I said, the massive pregnant assholes who constantly shit out enemies. And even before you reach them, there are loads of enemies for you to dispatch. Very avoidable combat, huh, shills? The stupid piss enemies that zone out the goddamn place are also present, so you can't even attack the mini-boss in peace before you get rid of them all the while the mini-boss is shitting out enemies, so you have to dispatch them too. And then finally, you get a chance to deal damage to it if you have weapons left, because after all that crap, the durability just goes to shit. So after 10 minutes of tickling that fucking thing with your stick, the wall opens and oh, look, here we go again. We go all over again. Dozens of enemies surrounding the same dipshit mini-boss. Another 10 minutes to get past this sewage gameplay. And another gauntlet. Exactly the same as before. Holy fuck, this shit never ends. When I finally thought it was over, I got put back in her shoes, and now I had to go through another section of back-to-back gauntlets, dude. Talk about padding. Jesus. There are 3 or 4 of these. I don't know, I lost count. My brain was turning off at that point. The last gauntlet feels like it's never gonna end. There are like 5 or 6 waves of enemies, and holy shit, man, I might just give up on this franchise if this is the dark future that it has in store. Oh look, more combat! Now in a literal arena, surrounded by blue fire, because that's so in place, right? It makes so much sense in a Silent Hill game to have all this fanfare, right? So after you're done with that horse shit, oh wow, look at how many doors of padding I have to open to get to the final boss. So fun, dude. I'm definitely not clawing my own skin at this point from the pure torment this gameplay is. So I finally get to the final boss, I kill it, and oh no, there's more. Now I had to run because they couldn't leave out the typical horror game escape section at the end. They couldn't put that meaningless filler in a cutscene or something. Jesus Christ, man, this game is pure concentrated sewage. Like, this shit is out of control. I was hopeful for this game after I had the displeasure of playing the Silent Hill 2 remake, because at least it was something new. It was something original, and I could respect that. But reality is cruel. I got a shitty Souls-like that plays terribly. So I could only barely stomach one playthrough of this trash. I know the story develops some more in the subsequent NG Plus playthroughs, so I might get some things wrong, but I'm not playing one more second of this torture session that calls itself a game. As you may know, the whole plot was written by Ryukishi07, known for his Higurashi visual novels, of which the anime is more well known, being like one of the 2 horror anime in existence that can be called horror. Seriously, there's less horror anime than there are straight men in Hassan's Twitch chat. However, the guy is either washed up or Higurashi was a one-off thing that just happened to be decent, because this game's plot is anything but. The story takes place in the 1960s Japan. Yeah, about this Silent Hill town somewhere, never heard of it. The real Silent Hill is not in Maine, United States, but it's called Ebisugaoka because it has the Japanese word for hill at the end, so it's surely Silent Hill. Just like Beverly Hills is just like Silent Hill. Wow, talk about diluting and devaluing the meaning of this franchise. But anyway, you play as Hinako Shimizu, a high school girl who hates her parents, kinda like how every single teenager her age does for a while. What a compelling character, dude. She doesn't want to be like her mother, aka a housewife who stays with her husband through thick and thin, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer. You know, like the marriage covenant would have them be. Her father is a man who attempted to open up a restaurant as he was a fisherman, but the business failed and he lost all his money. So because of that, he started drinking and turned into an asshole. He got swindled by someone and took on a heavy debt. We don't know because the game purposely omits how her father was in the past when she was a child, so we're supposed to believe that he was always abusive and a scumbag, kinda like how the Silent Hill 2 remake through its convenient omissions of story elements that humanized James, like his lines that were removed during Mary's monologue through that hallway near the end of the game, and the cutscene in the observation room in the hotel where he desperately yells at doctors for them not being able to help her, showing how much of a loving husband he was despite all else. So maybe the father wasn't always an asshole and circumstances turned him sour, but we're never presented that past history. Anyway, to repay his debt, the opportunity presented itself in the form of an arranged marriage for Hinako, who would marry into someone who has enough money to pay off the debt and help her family get out of this mess. Hinako being one step short of a troon who hates doing girly things, she looks down on women who just like behaving like women, and hell, one of the monsters, the horrible monsters manifested from her mind, literally moves around by playing hopscotch. Oh, the horror. Truly the heaviest struggle a Silent Hill protagonist has had to date. Puts James Sunderland to shame, right? So she doesn't like being a woman, and naturally she hates her parents for putting her through the horrible, horrifying prospect of marriage. Something that so many people will never have despite desperately wanting it. A family, kids, a stable life, a husband that would provide for her everything she needs, financial stability, and this husband is none other than Foxmask, aka Kotoyuki Tsuneki, who in the past she helped after he was bitten by a fox, and he grew infatuated to her ever since and actually loves her. Oh my god, what a terrifying outlook this girl has. Bravo Konami, bravo Ryukishi07 for making such a compellingly tragic character. So yeah, she hates her mother and she despises the fact that her sister got married and left her to fend for herself in the abusive father's household. Her mother takes the abuse without protest, and for that, Hinako hates her. But honestly, at least in the one playthrough that I did, the most abuse I saw coming from the father towards the mother was him yelling at the mother for making soup that he didn't like the taste of, calling it mud and throwing a fit. So this tomboyish girl who wants to behave like a man, who wants to do man things, and is clearly an outcast, projects her own ideals of happiness onto her mother, who is a regular woman. Kinda hypocritical, isn't it? The asshole father does throw a massive knife at Hinako after she throws on his face how much of a failure he is. So yeah, attempted manslaughter and shit. Assuming that this really happened and she's not just making shit up, because I did come across a memo that says that the father has paid off his loans already. So maybe him being swindled is also a fabrication she made. Maybe all of her antagonizing her parents is just all in her fucked up head. I don't know, I'm not playing this shit again to find out, but from what I looked at, the true ending doesn't really make amends. Now, I can relate to her suffering with a shitty father in a household where he yells and drinks and shit and is aggressive as fuck, but here's where the game gets woke. joke. Over and over again, she whines about the patriarchy and how women are treated like animals, in her own words. Am I the only one seeing the non sequitur here? She's making it seem as if her private family problems are a problem of society at large, which is the typical drivel you hear from the pink-haired, hairy armpit feminist land whales. The game itself contradicts this notion, probably unintentionally, because her two friends, Sakuko and Rinko, are never shown or hinted at to have such issues with their fathers. The only evidence of this is Hinako's own extremely biased and perhaps even delusional testimony of the other women she says also complain about their husbands. But the believe all women isn't gonna work on me, dude. This game is so biased with its agenda that it had the opposite effect on me. Now I don't believe for a second that Japan in the 60s was this horrible place where all the women were oppressed and unhappy, and I honestly can't take this girl seriously as this story is curated specifically to brainwash. And that only gets worse because first, she hates her parents so much that she wants to kill them. She refers to them as not even human in her journal. But late in the game, after her brided up self explodes both her parents, she gets all mopey about it, lamenting their deaths, even her father's. So I guess all that abuse wasn't really that bad. She yells that she wants her parents back and that the monster took them away from her. And by the way, this is the half of Hinako that is completely against marriage. Yes, in the true ending, she split herself in two. The game is constantly alluding to this duality that half of her wants to get married, but the other half is the resistant, stunning, and brave, strong woman that we know. But what happens is that the half that succumbs to the tradition of marriage, the traditional gender roles that this game loves to shit on, is the one that explodes her parents into bloody pulps, and the half that actually hates her parents is now crying, wanting daddy and mommy back. Make it make sense. From my experience observing people who are actually abused by their parents, there's no way in hell they do a 180 like that and suddenly feel like loving them. Here's the thing, unreliable narrator or not, this all makes her seem like just a spoiled little brat who isn't anywhere near fit to be the protagonist of a Silent Hill game, much less one that tries to be like SH2, having the protagonists themselves go through their own hell and all. This is just an angsty teenager who's going through her rebellious phase just like any other. This isn't Silent Hill material, man. The constant shitting on marriage throughout the game is also woke propaganda. Hinako wants to quote-unquote spread her wings, which translates to wanting to be a hedonistic subhuman just like every other roasty. What does she want? To be a career woman? To live by herself and drink wine, surrounded by 24 cats and complain about how all men are garbage? Thank the Lord TikTok wasn't a thing back in the 60s, or else she would turn out just like one of them terminally online resentful roasties. Women are particularly attracted to horror media for some reason, and many love the Silent Hill series, so do I doubt for a second that this was deliberate in Konami's part? Hell no. This propaganda is gonna work wonders, at least on the Western women who play this game, because Japanese people don't like soul-slop combat. They despise it. Hopefully over there it won't sell as good as it did here, and I can only hope so because Japan's population is already in steep decline with pretty much null birth rates. It's so bad that they were starting to adopt the global homo agenda of mass import in dangerous demographics to supplant their declining population. The prime minister had to step down just recently because the Japanese people weren't taking that shit anymore. So this game is a disgrace for spreading this anti-natalist, anti-family, anti-marriage propaganda. The ending where Hinako gets married to Fox Mask ends in a horrifying scene where her face gets crushed as she agonizes on how she doesn't want to be like her mother, namely married. The very same face that gets ripped off when she morphs into her monstrous wedding dress version of herself, implying that marriage makes a woman lose all of her identity. Simply absurd. The game repeatedly hammers down that marriage is this horrible thing that will pretty much kill who you were before. Marriage is framed as this horrific ritual where limbs are cut off, her back is branded with a fiery seal that turns her into Fox Mask's property, and her face is horrifically cut off and replaced with a mask. Fox Mask is able to mind control her, implying that that's what husbands do to their wives. As the marriage rite goes on, she becomes more and more sedated, anesthetized, mindlessly obedient, as if marriage takes away a woman's consciousness and turns them into a pet. Newsflash, no, marriage isn't this horrific thing. There's still arranged marriage in Japan nowadays, even though it's not that popular with the youth until they hit the wall and get desperate. So yeah, what a terrible thing right, ensuring that those who made the wrong decisions in their lives and rode the carousel still get a chance. So much worse than Western progressive cuckoldry, divorce, child support, alimony paying simulators that are our marriage institutions. The final boss is literally a Japanese wedding dress. How stupid, how unsubtle. I haven't thought about this game for a second after I was done with it, because there's nothing to think about. The message is rubbed in your face. There's no nuance. Nothing like the Silent Hill games we know, which have been debated for decades precisely because of how subtle and nuanced they are. So Hinako also has this male friend, Shu, who she considers a partner. She friend-zoned him and doesn't view him as a man at all, even though he clearly views her as something more than just a partner or friend, and the second ending makes that clear. These are the typical lines used by guys in games and anime who had to forfeit the girl they loved for one reason or another. He drugs her because he doesn't want to see her get married, so another male is painted as this conniving bastard. Well, not woke at all, guys. Turns out that this drug is what's causing all of the events she experiences. It's all a drug-induced hallucination. Or is it? I don't know, because in the second playthrough, to get the second ending, you have to not use those capsules ever. But she still goes through all the same experiences, all the same weird shit. So I don't know what the fuck is going on in this game. All I know is that the source of the fog are natural gases spewed from geyser eruptions that are happening all over the town. So there's nothing supernatural about it. It's just a subversion of one of the iconic things Silent Hill has ever done. Her friend Rinko is a bitch that is jealous of her, but her friend Sakuko, on the other hand, is autistic. She hasn't really done anything bad, and she dies like 5 minutes after she is introduced. Maybe not even that. There's this scene where Hinako mourns her death, even though as a player who only saw her for less than 5 minutes, I didn't feel anything. But for someone who mourns her friend's death so deeply, it sure is weird how later on, she reappears only to be killed by Hinako, leaving her behind locked in a pitch black room, something that she's absolutely terrified of. Ending of the first Saw movie style.
Game over.
She then proceeds to kill Rinko by dipping her into smoldering lava. And even Shu, her best friend and partner, is coldly left to die. I don't know, man. Am I supposed to like this bitch? I know that what they're attempting to do here is to blame these savage acts on the fact that she's going through the rites of marriage, and that's what marriage does to you, turns you into a monster and shit. But it's not working. It's just making me hate Hinako herself specifically, individually. This just shows to me that she always had the potential to do these things, that she was rotten to the core from the start, and she was just projecting that it was everybody else's fault, that it was society's fault, the patriarchy, her parents. Fuck off. Even James is less of a fucking asshole than her. Whether this is all real or not, because this game is such a retarded acid trip that it's hard to tell, they appear later again, hanging from a scaffold to drive that point home, because that's what this game brainwashes you into believing marriage is. Abandoning your friends, killing them, disfiguring your body beyond recognition, becoming property like cattle, cutting family ties. It's such a disgusting piece of propaganda. By the way, Sakuko's whole thing is just a copy-paste of the plot of the dog shit Higurashi anime remake or sequel that is so much worse than the original, where the plot is just the main character's friend seething over the main character, supposedly leaving her behind despite them being best friends since forever. It's just lazy recycled writing. Fox Mask's last name is Tsuneki, which is an anagram of Kitsune, which means fox. Oh my god, this is so cringe. Oh, did I mention that the apparition of her married sister is depicted as a rotten corpse? Because this propaganda piece is not blatant enough as it is already. In the first ending, it just turns out that the whole game was just a psychotic episode she was going through, where she went into a murderous spree, where she killed her parents, her husband, everyone. Because somehow she's such a strong woman that she could kill like 20 people with a pipe. And it's revealed that all this time we were playing in the past. She's actually 20 years old in the present, and she was about to get married when she went fucking bonkers. The second ending is where she succumbs to her side that wants to get married. She makes a cringy ass feminist remark on top of all the ones she's already done, and then Shu reluctantly bumps fists with Kotoyuki as he sees that he was cucked. Poor guy, man. And Hinako's face gets crushed. In the third third ending, Hinako's stunning and brave feminist side wins, Kotayuki turns into a fucking fox demon straight out of Naruto, and she runs off with Shu as the town goes through a natural disaster thanks to the geysers. Another dismal ending. And in the fourth and true ending, she splits her soul in two and goes to live a self-filleting, independent life with her other half. And my god, the writing in this final boss fight is so bad. So bad. In the true ending, where she's supposed to be her most redeemed self, her most relatable and likable version, this 16 years old or so high school girl is giving a moral lesson, a sermon, like she thinks she's Gandalf or something. She's doing a mic drop to a literal god. You would not be able to convince me that this writing isn't from a Vice article written by some bitter millennial white woman as some sort of therapeutic cope. Contrast this wall of text to what James says to Pyramid Head.
I was weak. That's why I needed you. Needed someone to punish me for my sins. But that's all over now. I know the truth. Now it's time to end this.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
That is my reaction when I realize what we lost. True art that heals and elevates the human spirit, replaced by this joke. We really do live in clown world after all. It's actually over. That's pretty much it for the plot of this piece of shit. What a downgrade. What a juvenile piece of propaganda masquerading as a Silent Hill story. The game is bad, like really bad. Everybody who has given this very positive reviews is most likely on Konami's payroll. This game isn't Silent Hill in any way, shape or form. The fanboy troons who consume anything from this series, even the scum of the diarrhea from a septic tank like Ascension and Book of Memories, can cope all they like and reach as much as they want with their frivolous White Claudia cameo. There's a reason why Luigi's Mansion is not called Super Mario, even though it has way more Super Mario things then Silent Hill F has Silent Hill things, because the core concept is too distinct. Not all companies are as scummy as Konami, so they don't dilute and disfigure their IPs. The plant is completely irrelevant. Get the essence right first, get the identity right first, and then you can add inconsequential details, and it will be Silent Hill. But as it stands, it's just Fatal Frame with added sloppy Dark Souls combat and a more well-recognized brand name slapped on it to make more monies. Thanks to all the consumers, this is the future of the franchise, and I might be done with it after this. I'll keep playing the actual good, timeless classics because I actually value art and am averse to devaluing the things that shaped me as a person ever since I was a kid by accepting fake new entries. So the final score is a whopping 4 out of 10. Silent Hill F definitely gets an F. Worst game of the year, no question about that. I know this video is gonna get disliked to hell and back by all the Redditors that might watch it. It's always a pleasure to displease all the golems, so keep them coming. And so I appreciate you if you've watched this shit show to the very end. Subscribe if you want more autistic renty reviews. I might actually make more positive videos from now on about games I actually like, since this dog shit was the last thing I was interested in for new releases this year. I'll see you later.